And good evening, folks. Welcome, one and all, to the podcast, and joined by my friend Al here, as always.
Greetings.
And what
That's
was
the
that?
clock saying it's 9 p.m. Central.
The clock saying it's 9 p.m. Central. That's a beautiful thing. It's 10 p.m. on the Eastern side, and Al and I are here with your wonderful retro podcast. Guys in their 50s and 60s talking about the 70s and 80s every
Yes.
week. And also find it on your audio podcast channel as soon as I put them up on audio podcast. Still working on that, folks. Too many things, too many irons in the fire. This week, this week, we will be chatting about, well, sure enough, music tech. I mean, there's going to be a lot of tech 80s and 70s and 80s techs of different sorts on our channel. But this week is going to be music tech. I'm going to let a few of the people populate here while I get the preliminary things going. By the way, folks, next week is going to be. I have it slated for Remember These Specials, but I may change that depending on how. Because I don't know if I could fill a whole hour with these specials. But yeah, they're going to be. We've got a number of them. I can think off 10 off the top of my head, so I guess there'll be quite a few. And I'll be talking about specials like the Star Wars special, which nobody likes to talk about, and
Oh,
and other stuff like that from the 70s and 80s. Things like that. Well, anyway, so there's going to be some future fun here. We're not going to get into today. We're talking strictly music tech. We're not going to get into video recording. That's another show. Not going to get into computers. That's another show. Computer peripherals, yet another show. And pocket computers, yet another show. So we've got plenty of tech shows coming up in the future. But for now, music tech. And we're going to begin the ball with, well, the oldest tech from the 70s, which is probably going to be the reel to reel, which is pre 70s, of course. But I would say that probably during the 70s, if not maybe a little earlier, but probably during the 70s, yeah, that's about when reel to reel died, folks. I mean, if you guys, I don't know, what do
hmm
you think, Al? I
yeah.
mean, not
I
not that it was popular, but yeah.
it was for the audiophiles, the ones that really had a good ear for music. For some reason, it seemed that way. The elite in music had the reel-to-reel tapes. I remember the reel-to-reel tapes when I was like 7 years old in school.
Yep.
The teacher sat me down, and this is 67, and said, "Here, learn English." And I listened to
Oh
the
yeah.
series, the Jane series, See Jane Run, 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 Run,
Yep.
See Spot Run, 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 Run.
Oh,
I
that's
learned
right. That's
English
right.
that way.
Yeah, yeah. See,
Um,
it's
um,
funny because I'm just that 5 year difference between us, folks. Al is 60, I'm 55, and just that 5 year difference between us shows how much technology advanced. Because in my youth, when I was 7, I
mhm,
would listen to those on the brand new technology cassette
Cassette.
with those wonderful turn to the next slide beep
Yes, yes.
and you'd have that cue and say, okay, let me turn to the next page. Beep, and it was quite entertaining there. Flip the cassette over. Beep. Yeah, it's I couldn't imagine how it was be. Now I do have. Right, sitting back here, I have my reel-to-reel player, my Sony. I love it. Three different speeds. The what is it, 3.5 feet per minute, I believe, or 1 and 3/4 feet per minute. Slow, super slow speed that I could probably fit easily 8 hours on on a nice. In fact, I have my cassette. I'm not gonna pull them down now, but I have one of the old realistic. Well, they're not old, but from the 70s and 70s and 80s, the realistic 1200 and 1600 meter cassette tapes, reel-to-reel tapes that they even have, track and foot counter, or is it 60? No, it's not feet, it's speeders. It's the weirdest
It's
thing.
isn't
Or
it
was it?
TPI? No, that's threads per inch. Never
Yeah,
mind.
yeah. No, it's in fact. Hang on a second. Let me look up real quick. Let's see. Realistic, real to real. Let's see. Here we go, and a nice, beautiful image pops up for me around here. Great, showing players. There it is. Super tape. 35. Yeah, 3600. That's got to be feet. It's got to be feet, but I can't. Let me see if I can bring up the image a little bit clearer. Yeah, 3,600 feet, folks. So it was in feet. It was 3,600 feet were the big reels, and those things would last me quite a long time. I remember, in fact, still loaded on this machine, and I haven't touched it in a decade and a half at least. Still loaded on this machine was, see, back in those days, the Dr. Demento show was on
Yes.
at Sunday nights from
Fish heads, fish heads.
all of
Do
them.
do do do.
Eat them up,
Fish heads.
yum. And Weird Al, My Bologna. I mean, the first time I remember the first time that was popular. It was one of his first hits. Well, so anyway, so I would record. I would set my little time. I had a little timer that would a little digital brand. I mean, spanking new, state of the art timer. This is late 70s. I would hook that electric plug timer that you would have the clock and it would just power on and power off at a certain time, and my reel to reel would be already recording. It would be set to record, and then family'd go to church in the evenings on Sunday, and Dr. Demento show was on at that time. So over here anyway, at different times, different places, and it would record it for 2 hours or 3 hours, however long the show was. So the cockroach that ate Cincinnati. I don't care what the thing was. I would listen to that show all evening long. I'd have a blast. And I had probably 5 or 6 shows still from that time recorded on that very tape that is sitting up in my machine. Just not collecting dust because I have a good dust cover on it. But those were. Let me say hello to a few of the people out there in the audience. For those of the folks listening in audio land, we have our video podcast each week at 10 p.m. here on YouTube and on Facebook. Javi's Woodshop is the channel. Okay, so good evening, Paul. Good evening, Hendrix. Good to see you. Good to see you, Jim. Of course, there's Al. There's Mervin from Poppy's Woodshed. And there's Chris from
Chris Nealon.
Niantic. What's that?
Chris Nealon.
Chris Nealon from Niantic. Didn't miss it this time. And he still has his reel-to-reel as well. I'm telling you. Yep. Making Love in a Subaru. That's another one that's actually on this tape. Great song. But anyway, moving on from tape decks, from reel-to-reel decks, the next one is, well, what's behind us here is the obviously the cassettes. Cassettes were very, very famous, and they outlasted 8-tracks, which was absolutely, because of their practicality compared to the 8-track. It's a darn shame. We'll talk about 8-tracks in a second, but how many cassette decks do you think you owned in your in your lifetime?
I know that I still have an old one.
As do I.
From the early 80s, from the early 80s.
Yep, same here.
I still have it. It doesn't work, but I still have it. I need to replace the output transistors on it. One of these days, I keep telling myself.
Yeah, yep. The finals are blown.
The finals, yeah, the finals.
Uh,
I don't know why they would blow.
By the way, folks, for those of you who are not electrical buffs like we are, if for those of you that have had, and I'm not talking the line out, I'm talking about the amplified cassette players and stuff like that that would connect to speakers. The final there are power transistors at the very end just before you go to the speaker that they're called final and and that's what we're talking about here, just in case you're a little lost. And whenever we would crank it up, as you know, audiophiles would normally do, because you know we say we enjoy quality, but
Yeah,
when
when
we're
you
young,
crank it
we
up,
enjoy noise.
the harmonic distortion just goes
Yeah, it
down.
just drops like a rock. And then yeah, so the louder the better in some cases. I'm from Miami, so that was the whole theme around this place, just bass and loudness at the time. Thank God I never got to that bass phase. That's funny. Talk about difference in ages. My brother is 3 years younger than me. He was all about the bass, about the bass, about the bass. Yeah, I was disco era. He was hip hop, and it's so funny, just that 3 year difference. But I'll tell you, yeah, I've changed quite a number of transistors and finals, and you know, it's our do-it-yourself nature. Even back then, I mean, right now, a lot of us, you know, we electrical problem, electrical outlet, or a wood thing, or a chair, yeah, whatever it is. Many of us, at least following my show, are very fix it handy type of guys, and the technology has gotten to the point where now fix it is just. There are still many of us that do the mechanical fix it, but it has gotten to the point where I look at my daughter, and my daughter, thanks to me, she knows a lot of the my daughters both know a lot of the mechanical uh, ways to fix things, but because they grew up in this culture, they know the technical software side of it as well. And that's that's what it's become. There's not a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of there's a lot of replace and dump and replace in this world, and you know, especially with Amazon. You know, hey, come next day, no problem, for all the cheaper stuff. But even so, when it comes to the computer, you don't just, you know, dump a computer and replace it. You know, I mean, you can, I suppose, if you're rich enough. But anyway, getting off topic here, as we always do. But going
of
back to
course.
the going going back to the cassettes. Um, yeah, I'll never forget the my I had so many different cassette recorders. I'll never forget my first cassette recorder, and it was a realistic, uh, you know, with the little plastic flip up case, the standard ones with the buttons in the front, long and thin. You know which one I'm talking about. You got to hold the red. You're gonna pull one out, aren't you?
I don't
You're gonna
know. I
you're
don't know
gonna
if I
you got
ever
to
got.
hold the red record button with the play button down, you know, and stuff. And here it comes. Let's see him yank one out here. And I used to love those things. And I had this, what would now be considered very, very poor quality, cheap eighth-inch plug microphone that would plug into the side. But wait, there's more.
I
The tech
failed.
what a shame. Well, look, the technology that we had was so advanced that there was. Do you remember there was the eighth-inch plug with the little 16th-inch plug right next to it,
Yep. Yep.
because the
Like like
16th
that.
the 16th-inch plug was actually for on off.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you would plug in the double plug, which my fancy wancy realistic microphone, black piece of plastic with the cheapest condenser mic inside that you ever,
Right.
that with the on off switch in the front. So anytime I just hit record and play on the machine, and hello, how are you doing? This is Javi, and off, and it would pause the
Yes.
recording.
Pause the
It
record.
was the most beautiful thing in the world. And later, let's talk microcassettes. Yeah, how many now? Obviously, you've owned a microcassette player or two in your time. Those were well.
Yeah,
Say
I
something
remember.
because the people that don't see us can't see you nodding.
I remember. Yes, yes, I have owned microcassette tapes. I remember mostly on the answering machines that we had back then on our landline telephones. I mean,
Oh
that
yeah.
was where it
Yep.
worked out the best.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. No, I mean, and those were the fancy answering machines.
Here, here in my formerly nicotine stained fingers, I have some 8 millimeter tape, and this though is digital tape, and I don't remember exactly when this came
Oh yeah,
about,
that came about in the 80s. That came about in the 80s. But
but this was for both backing up computer tape
oh yeah,
and also for video. This works great for video
that was a
because the
little that was
digital
that
quality.
was that was actually just borderline 90s.
90's, yes,
But
it was. It was.
talk about answering machines. Even though we'll probably get to them on a different subject. The first answering machine my father had was pre microcassette tape, and it was the Phone Mate. Remember the Phone Mate?
The phone mates.
The
Well,
Phone Mate.
yeah.
Phone Mate had two reels inside the machine.
Mhm.
One of them was kind of like an 8-track in the sense that it was a looping reel, and you'd have a 30-second message, and that's it. Or the more advanced phone mates, for those of you who can recall this, the more advanced phone mates, you had an entire minute. But here's what would happen. You'd record your message for however long you wanted, and then you'd press the button there was a little remote control that had a beep on it, and that was your remote control to pick up your messages. But this beep, you would play, hello, this is Javier, blah 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 blah, please leave your message, and then you'd press the beep. The machine would continue the tape because it was like an 8-track. It was a single loop, but it was 1 minute long. So if your message wasn't a minute long, or it was only 10 seconds long, it would go through the whole minute playing them until it would reach the silver trigger at the end, which would
Okay.
tell it to stop.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was ready for you to either re-record your message or ready for answering. The answering was on a reel-to-reel tape, which it would record 30 seconds regardless. That was the thing. You've got 30 seconds to record your message, blah, 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 blah. Beep. Now, here's the thing. If somebody were to hang up and call back, the machine would not be ready to pick up for another almost a minute, because it would have to continue until it was ready with the thing. And it would pick up on the second ring, and oh man, those were fascinating times. I mean,
Yes.
like Christine said, this tape will self-destruct.
That's right. That was the Mission Impossible stuff. Hey,
Yep,
by the
yep.
way, just for fact checking,
Yep.
this was actually, the box itself was actually 1993.
There you go.
Yeah.
You
So,
see?
so the
See?
box
So-
from 93. This might have been
Yep.
80's technology
Nah,
that bled over.
I don't know. Let's see. When did DAT tapes come out? Hang on
Well,
a second.
that's what I was looking up. But
When did DAT tapes come
let's see what
out?
Wikipedia says. Oh, introduced in 1987 by Sony.
There you go. All right, so that is technically within our
Yeah.
realm, but we haven't gotten there yet chronologically. So
Yeah,
my
no.
OCD will delay that for the moment.
All right.
So after cassettes was, of course, the infamous 8-track tape, and I loved the 8-track tape.
Now hold on. Were cassettes before 8-track?
Yes, they were.
Because I thought I had an 8-track first and then a cassette.
Nope.
Wow.
Cassettes were first before 8-tracks.
Wow.
Yep. Yep. And then 8 tracks. 8 tracks was. I mean, I'll verify that. Let me see.
Well, the reason I say is because I was too poor to afford a cassette player.
Yep. Cassettes were 64. So yeah, they were actually, and 8 tracks were, well, mid 60s according to this. Hang on a second.
Yeah,
The first 8
yeah,
track. See, the thing is that it's a difficult situation because when they you have when they came out and then when they were popular. And
right.
and the issue is that they were popular. Yeah, formerly Stereo 8. Yeah, I remember Stereo 8.
This is going to
And
blow your mind.
the first pre-recorded tapes were in the 50s, according to this, of the 8 tracks.
This is going to blow your
However,
mind.
September 65 is the official date. What is it?
Reel to Reel
Yeah,
came out in 1935.
of course. Yep,
Yes,
it's quite early. I
yes.
That much I knew. I knew it was way before I was born. November 64 was cassettes. So 8 tracks came out. Okay, the technology was out before then, but officially, Philips on one side and who was the other one that had the do, 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 do. Well, anyway,
Sony?
it was probably Sony, but let me see. Stereo 8 was. It's a little difficult to read. It was designed in '52 by Bernard Cusino. Okay, he was the one who originally designed it. Would be inspired by Earl Muntz's 4-track design in '63. And then it goes on and on and on. So Stereo 8 came out in '63, '64.
Yeah,
There
8-track
were a
was
bunch.
introduced 67, 68.
8 track. Well, yes, but the popularity
Six,
commercial
68 to
was
75.
'65. The Ford Motor Company, of all things, introduced a factory installed, dealer installed 8 track players. So yeah, RCA Victory. That was probably why the 8 tracks were so popular, is because of the cars. Because cassette tapes, that's just it. Now that I do remember from my youth, car cassette players were not a thing
Yeah, not yet.
until
Yeah,
way after 8 track.
right, exactly. And it was because of the lugginess of the 8-tracks that cassettes picked up speed
Yep,
and
yep,
overpassed. Yep.
yep, yep. And I had both when I was young. And when I was young, I had both 8 track and cassette. I I gotta say, I didn't like. I thought 8 track was the coolest thing in the world. When I was, let me see, I'll never forget one of my earliest memories. It's not when I first got my 8 track, but one of my earliest memories of 8 track was the Star Wars. I Okay, this is gonna be funny. Talk about an eclectic mix. I had tapes, two 8 track tapes that I got Christmas. I think it was 1974, 75. And well, obviously a little later. No, it was a little later. It was 77. When did Star Wars come out?
77, I think.
77. So it was
Yeah.
Christmas of 77. Star Wars had just come out, and I got the soundtrack to Star Wars, the John Williams disco soundtrack
Oh boy.
to Star Wars. And at the same time, I also got another wonderful, wonderful 8 track tape, YMCA. I got the Village People. I got the Village People YMCA, and I would play Go West. And it's funny because there were a bunch of songs out on that album. I seem to remember on that video, on that 8 track tape. There was a bunch of songs, and I always seem to remember going from YMCA to Go West, because YMCA came first. Go West was on the same track, or it might have been a different track, but it was on the same track. It was right after it. But then I didn't like most of the other songs at the time, so I had to wait. I'd fast forward to the end of the track, click and play, and switch the track and play YMCA again. So I mean, you guys that know 8-track know how it would work. There was, let's say it was how many minutes was an 8-track tape?
I want to say 80 minutes. I don't remember.
I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, I'm going to guess 80 minutes.
And
8-track.
let's see.
Sounds good, don't it?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's see. 104 were the longest ones, and but you got 52 minutes is if you wanted quadraphonic sound.
See, 80 is right in between.
80's right in between. That makes sense. All right. So let's say it's 80 minutes. So we're looking at 80 minutes, but now divide that by 4, because obviously 4 tracks. So it would really be about 20 minutes of tape. Anywhere between 25, between, say, 20 minutes and the longest one is 104 divided by, it's
25, yeah.
That's 25 minutes. So between 20 and 25 minutes is what you're looking at. And that makes sense, because a quadraphonic tape is 52 minutes long, so divide that by 2, because it's 2 tracks of 4. That would be 26 minutes. So perfect. Okay, so between 20 and, let's say 20 and 25 minutes for the most part. Now,
I remember the solenoid on the head kicking in, clunk, clunk, going to the next track. Yes.
Oh, I remember that oh so well. Oh so well. No, those were some good memories with 8-tracks, and you know, you got to be careful with them overheating in the car. They wouldn't last. And then when they get stuck. See, that's the beautiful thing about cassettes.
Oh, man.
Cassettes. You know what you pull out when a cassette gets when you lose the cassette. Yeah, he's gonna do it. He's gonna do it. There it is. The number 2 pencil.
I have my cassette tool. Yes.
That's it. That is our cassette tool, the number 2 pencil. And then of course with the 8-track, well, it was a pain in the butt, because basically you got to undo 4 screws, and good luck to you, because that would be a nightmare.
In my car, I had a unit that sat on the transmission hump.
Yeah.
That was tube based. So I had a tube cassette. I'm sorry, a tube 8-track player. And you talk about the heat?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That'll pour out some heat.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Hendrix was saying he switched from 8-track to cassette in '74, and he had a friend with an Underdash 45 player in an Impala. That is incredible, and that's the next step we'll get to. Yeah, no, 45 is in 45s. I'm guessing. Yeah, 45 records.
Vinyl, right?
Vinyl records, yep. Yeah. And that's our next subject. So that's a good segue. Even though all those were available pre-70s, that pretty much, because of CDs coming out when they did, that was pretty much the era where it was the beginning of the death of vinyl. And obviously there's retro vinyl and there's things like that have come out, but really we'll talk about compact discs in a second, but let's talk about vinyl, because that's one of our youth here. Obviously you remember the 33 and the thirds and the 45s. Yes. Do you remember the 16s and the 78s?
The 78s. I remember an elderly lady that had a 78 player, and it was really neat. It was tall.
Don't call my mom elderly, because in our house we had a console record player with 4 speeds, 16. It was 16 and 16 and 7/8 or something like that. I want to say, and and it was 33 and a third. It was 45 and 78. And we actually had probably 5 or 6 78 records. Now he's looking for something again.
Yes. I tell you, I organize and it just becomes unorganized. Never mind.
No worries. So, yeah, I mean, like all the kids my age, I had pretty much every single was on 45, and every album was on an album.
Oh, yeah.
Every album was on an album. What's
Oh,
that?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
You got your album there?
Oh, yeah.
There we go. He found his
Oh, yeah.
records.
Herb Albert's
Ah,
Tijuana Brass.
Tijuana
Oh,
Brass
yeah.
with the green screen and all coming
Yes,
through
but it still comes through, though. I see it.
Yeah,
I
I've
see it.
got. I mean, I still have in my warehouse a whole box of records, including Chuck Mangione's "Feels So Good,"
Love
and
Potion number 9.
I got comedy albums from Robin Williams. I mean, oh, those were the
Lady
days.
Fingers.
Pierre
Butterball.
Rose had 278s and listened to them all the time.
Hey, I know that Pierre Rose dude. That's the captain.
That's incredible.
Hey.
That's incredible. Yep. I'll tell you. So yeah. So I loved my record collection, but I gotta be honest with you. Every one of my records, whenever I got records, I would because of cassette tapes, I would transfer everything to cassettes because obviously, well,
Right.
aside from Hendrix's friend, you can't play a record in your car, or not practically anyway. But once Realistic and our old buddy Radio Shack came out with, well, and many other brands, obviously. Once I had my Realistic cassette deck in the car, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic. Oh yeah, Bill Cosby. Jeffrey Stewart says Bill Cosby comedy albums. Man, Bill Cosby, George Carlin.
Zupa.
I mean, I had
Noah.
there you go. But I'll tell you, it was fantastic having the cassette boxes that you used to carry, the cases that would hold a whole bunch of cassettes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, pre-CDs. And then, of course, we move on to CDs, which in the beginning was just, for home use.
CDs.
Yep. And about the same time of CDs were, well, actually just before then, because of cassettes, not only did we have the car players come out, not only did we have our cassette decks at home, but we had, of course, the famous Sony Walkman that everybody, and then later everybody, all the companies made them, but Sony was pretty much the first to make the form factor that small. Because before that,
Yeah.
and I skipped over this part, so let me backtrack a little bit. Boom boxes. That was definitely a 70's item.
I had the Fro too.
I
did.
had an 8-track boombox. I had a few 8-track boomboxes. I had an 8-track boombox which the 8-track would pop in the front, in the middle. I had the 8-track boombox, the old Panasonic one that looked like a sponge that with all the holes that would pop in the side. That was a red one. I remember that vividly. Oh man, so many memories of the boom boxes. Then of course the cassette boom boxes, cassette after cassette after cassette. It's as if
I got my cassette boombox.
there's your
Here you
boom
go.
box. Now for those of you listening on the audio podcast, he is holding up what looks to be a 70's reproduction of a 1930s radio
with a CD player.
with a CD player in it. On his shoulder as if it was a boombox.
It's my boombox. Oh, and
Yeah.
look, It's got a record player in it too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So it looks like it's one of those play school record players now that he's popped the top. But yeah, I'll tell you, folks, that was and look at that. It looks like it has, from the looks of that. Am I correct in assuming there's a hole in the back so you could put an album in it, a full size album?
Yes, yes, you can. Yes, you
That is
can. That's
fantastic.
exactly what that's for.
That is, it's
Yeah.
got a little hole in the. It's got a hole in the back because yeah, it's let me describe this thing. If you look at it from the top, it's like a hexagonal in nature with one of the sides cut short, and that's the side that has the hole
Yep.
for the album to stick out. That's fantastic. And oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
there's a good one. Paul Stewart
Yes.
mentioned a BMG or Time Life or one of those record Columbia Record and Tape Club. How many of you guys? I mean, like I'm there's an episode in News Radio which I find hilarious. For those of you who've watched News Radio, where Beth has subscribed to the Columbia Records and Tapes Club with so many. Basically, she had hoarded practically every single CD at the time. It's CD that there was, and she would bring in boxes and boxes of CDs. And the Columbia Record and Tape Club asked for her by numerous names, all of them hilarious. And in the end, they gave her a check for her to stop make doing subscriptions, because she would take the 12 free CDs or whatever, and she'd never pay for her subscription and stuff like that. So
Yeah, you used to get 12 for one deals and stuff. And
yeah, you'd buy one, you'd get the next 11 free, but you would have to buy one every month for the next 12 months or so. And let me tell
well,
you, they
did.
were a pain and they were a scam, but many people got their 12 and just completely ditched them.
You didn't have to buy them every month. They would automatically ship them out to you. You could return them. You could do the return label and send it back. Well, that cost them money, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'll tell you, those were $8 was a lot. Jim is correct.
Yes,
Eight
it was.
$8 was a lot in the 70's.
It was.
A lot in the 70's. But
Yes.
I'll tell you. So let's see. We've covered most of the formats. Now, aside from, now I know you did this because you were talking about it earlier with your DAT player. You clearly had a computer. I mean, we're not going to go
Yes.
too much into this because we can talk about this with the peripheral techs, with the peripheral tech show. But how many of you guys out there used your cassette deck as a storage device
I did.
for the computer?
I did. And I still have it. I still have it.
Yep. I still have. I still have quite a few cassette decks.
Imagine that.
I've got a cassette deck that I've got a professional Fostex cassette duplicator that I did buy in the 80's. It basically has two cassette decks, and you pop the original and the blank in, and in 1 minute you press the button, and in 1 minute records all 4 tracks at super high speed. It basically it's like going fast forward, playing and recording at the same time. It's absolutely fantastic. You know,
Fast forward time.
because we used to do a lot of back then. Our church group used to do a lot of retreats and stuff like that, and we would play certain songs for them, Christian or pop, depends on who the speaker was and all that. And we'd have some talks, and we'd record these things, and we'd each give them, the attendees, we'd give them a tape of their, and then some people, they tell me years later they've worn down their cassette tape in their
Very much
car
so.
from playing it over and over and over
Yep.
because it's good times remembered. Same thing goes for when you have a get together, family outing and stuff back in the days of video and all that, videotapes. But Let's
that's one
see.
of the things that
Hmm.
that won't be missed, I guess, is the wearing down
Yeah.
of the media. Now we
Yeah.
have digital media, and
Yeah.
even the DVD and the CD,
That'll wear. Yeah. Yep.
wears. But now we've got digital media stored in the cloud, and it's like that never wears out until the cloud goes away, which maybe it will, maybe it won't, right?
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, the it's incredible how the cloud farms are the hard drive technology continues to increase, and that's fantastic. I mean, fantastic for us because I mean, I know here I have everything on my talk about paranoid. And it's not that it's like when you die everything goes away anyway, so but I still have a lot of family photos and stuff that will get passed on. But and most of the stuff is on YouTube. I'm using YouTube to document like the building of my house and all that. So
Yep.
generations in the future, or whoever may buy my house in the future after I'm gone, that will see it. But I've got probably 32 terabytes sitting right next to me of stuff, you know, in the computer, and then backed up on the cloud. And
Did you say terabytes?
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
32 terabytes.
terabytes.
Yes, I
That's
have.
amazing.
Well, I have four 8 terabyte drives sitting right here in my drive bay. I've got four more for backup. One of them's
Hmm.
actually for movies. For I've got a video player. One of them's for backup for my main stuff. One of them's backup for my not so main stuff. Then I've got
Hobbies,
another one for archive, for
hobbies
archival.
torrents.
Yeah. It's not you guys, if you watch my Make Room for Javi videos, the first ones, go to javi.com, javi.com, and scroll down and click on Make Room for Javi, and you'll get a link to all the YouTube videos there. And that's also the videos later on of me building clearing the property and soon to be building the house and then the shop. So it's a whole long journey, but in the beginning it all started with a bunch of hoarding videos, and you'll get a kick out of those if you guys watch them. Because I'm not only a hoarder physically, I'm a hoarder softwarely,
Digitally,
digitally.
he's a hoarder also.
I'm a digital
Yeah,
hoarder as well. But
I think I fall
so
into that same category.
no,
I've
I
got
mean,
computers that I had back
yeah,
in the 80s. I mean,
yeah,
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 still.
and I'll tell you, I mean, Jim's got a 12, an 8, and a 5. Yep, yep.
Jeez.
Yeah, and then Sheldon's enemies list was on a three and a half
Three
inch
and a half.
floppy.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. I remember those.
And a
Nice.
three and a half really isn't a floppy. A three and a half is a diskette. A floppy actually you can
Yeah, a
swap it
floppy is a
around.
exactly. We could
Yes.
we
Yeah. We still
all of
call it a
us old
floppy.
timers, all of us old timers that
Yeah.
have used five and a
Yeah.
half and 8 inch, 5 1/4 and
Exactly.
8 inch
An 8 inch.
floppies
Yes. Yes.
will
We still call
definitely
the
agree that that is not a floppy, but
right.
it is a
Right.
diskette.
Inside it is. If you take it apart, inside it is floppy just the
Yep,
same. But
yep.
yes, yes.
But
Sorry, I'm
it's
not calling you out. I'm just
no,
saying.
yeah. Now, I'll tell you one thing though. That is a very interesting, although not very reliable, but it is a very interesting way of keeping a security. Because there are not many. I mean, let's say you buy an old uh, a zip drive, for instance, a
Mhm.
100 megabyte zip drive cartridge with the zip drive player, or an old Bernoulli box, or an old with the Bernoulli cassette tapes. And I won't get into peripherals again. That's another subject. There you go. But if you had one of those old tape drives, you can keep all your information safe in there. Well, assuming your information is not more than 120 bytes or
Right.
720K or whatever was on those things, 180K at the time. And then stick them in a safe deposit box. But here's the thing: magnetic media degrades rather quickly. So you
Right.
know that's the
That
thing.
is true. I used to work.
Punch tape. Yeah, Pierre Rose talking about punch tape. Well, let's not get on the subject of computers because that we'll save that for another show. what else as far as music
Can,
media?
can I add one thing?
Yeah.
If you're going to get a computer, and I know computer, get an IBM 5100 because John Teeter is actually looking for one of those from the future. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Anyway,
There you go. There you go.
I'm
Okay,
done.
so let's go. Let's move into radio because radio, another music tech that has changed considerably. I remember when I was a kid on my bike, eight FM uh, FM radio, FM
That's a,
bike radios
that's a
were
Steely Dan song.
FM bike radios were just practically non-existent. I mean, Radio Shack had an AM radio for the longest time, AM bike radio, AM only. And I used to get two, and I tell this story every now and then. I used to get two stations. I think WIOD was one of them, and there were two. I mean, this is Miami, so there were a lot of Cuban stations and there were a lot of talk
Yeah.
radio, but there were two music stations in AM. All,
WQBA.
all the station. Yep, La Cubanísima, and all the Cuban, all the music stations were on FM. All the talk stations and all the Latin stations were on AM, but there was still one or two. And I remember riding my bike with the Huffy with the banana seat, back in I don't know early '70s with my AM radio from Radio Shack with my horn. It had a little bike horn on it, mounted onto my handlebars, listening to "Slip Sliding Away" from
Paul Simon's
from
song.
Paul
Huh?
Simon. "Slip Sliding Away." When did that song come out? But anyway, um, that was
I want to say 78, but that's my
no,
guess.
no. It had to be earlier than that. Had to be earlier than that.
I'm
Let
going
me
to say
see.
78. No, released in 82.
No, then it. Oh no, I'm sorry. 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover.
Okay.
Well,
I'm
that might
also
have been
gonna,
it might have been the
I'm
same
also going
thing.
to say 78.
It couldn't have been that late. Let me see. Hang on a second. Um, come on. Pull it up.
50 ways to leave your lover.
75, December 75.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
December
Well, I was
75.
close.
All right, so I was 10 years old riding a bike and it was 75. There were actually FM radios out back then, but the AMs were cheaper. But anyway, yeah, 75. Yeah, just hop on the bus, Gus. No need to
The
discuss
problem
much.
is all inside your head, she said to me. The
Yep.
answer is easy.
Not no more than that, or we're gonna have to pay
Okay.
Paul
All right.
Simon's
Okay.
estate.
Okay.
Or Paul Simon. And by the way, we love you, Paul Simon.
We do.
Uh,
Paul Simon is the it rocks.
yeah. So anyway, radio. What's your earliest? Okay, I'll give you my earliest recollection of radio, and that
Oh,
is I
I've got
used
one
to.
too.
I was about maybe 4 or 5 years old, and I couldn't sleep at night.
Oh my goodness.
So hop into my insomnia. I've always had it, and hop into my grandparents. Grandparents. You know how it is with the grandparents. Hey, come sleep with no problem. At 4 years old and 3 or 4, and my grandparents, being Cuban grandparents, would listen to WQBA, La Cubanísima,
WQBA,
the
La
Spanish radio
Cubanísima.
station, on their
Mhm.
old Zenith. I wish I could describe this thing, but it was a Zenith. It was all mostly silver. It had a lid that contained an instruction manual, and you could close it up. It had a handle which you'd press one side of the handle, and it would pop up, and there would be an antenna that would lift from the square black handle, and then you'd close it. Well, you could shift on the side of the radio, shift the bands. It would be AM, FM, whether it was, and it was
Wasn't
some.
it like wasn't it like uh, uh, CW also?
It was
Wasn't it?
CW also.
Yeah, yeah,
It was the weirdest thing. It was the coolest thing.
yeah.
They always kept it on the AM channel, and they never changed it from there. But oh, time after time, I would switch the stations, and I would. Oh man, I wish I could. If I could get a hold of one of those radios now.
Hey,
But
eBay. I bet they've got one on eBay.
I'll be looking for them. I'll be looking for one of those. Oh man. Yep, I found one similar. I found one similar already, just in a picture. There it is, something similar. Solid state Royal 7 or something. There it is. I just saw it. Transoceanic model Royal. Okay, so Transoceanic, that is the exact one.
Sounds like the island.
1960s Zenith Transoceanic Model Royal 3000-1 AM FM multi-band radio. That is my first recollection, and that is exactly it. Even down to the little dial and the time zones on the radio. That is actually, if you guys do a search for Zenith Royal 3000-1, you will probably find the radio that I first had. I love it.
That
All
sounds
transistor radio.
That sounds
I,
like the series, the island and the Dharma Initiative, the whatever you say.
Oceanic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I would listen to that, and the Cuban radio station would just be blabbering and blabbering and blabbering on, and you know, I'm at 4 years old. I don't care what they're saying. I understand most of it, but I couldn't care. I could care less. I couldn't care less. But what was really cool was they had it was a in Spanish it says radio reloj, which is a radio clock,
Radio clock.
and what would happen is while they're the background the whole time was tick, tick, tick. Every second would be a tick. I don't care who was talking. They're the news reporters talking. Da 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 da. And this happened in the news, and this happened in the news. Radio clock time, WQBA time, such and such, and they would give the time every 2 minutes. It was the most fantastic, you know. It was cool. It was just thinking about those things in my youth. That was my youth.
It was technology of the day. It was the high tech of the day.
Yep.
Is what it was. Yeah.
Yep. That's a fantastic radio. I wonder if I can get one on eBay.
You probably can.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. But anyway, we got another 8 minutes. What was your first recollection of, or your first experience with radio?
So my first experience with radio. Okay, I'm going to say one thing, but then I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I remember, and actually, no, this is cassette. Yeah, so maybe I should. I used to record the Star Trek episodes and on cassette and put them on my bike and had a cassette player on my bike, and I used to be able to tell you the exact lines from the show. Anyway, that aside.
Yep.
My first, because it was the same time period.
Yep.
My first radio experience was at night. I had a little transistor radio about, say, 4 inches by 3 inches or whatever the size the transistor radios were then, 9-volt battery.
Yep.
And I had an earphone jack that I used. And at night, I would go to sleep, not because of insomnia, just go to sleep listening to the songs of that time, and I remember listening to probably 60s music in the 70s. This was probably around 72, give or take. That was my first experience with radio, where I had my own radio, and of course I kept buying batteries because I'd go to sleep and the batteries would go out because I'd put the earphone on and I'd listen to it and stuff. And yeah, that was my first experience.
That is a great memory. The transistor radios,
Mm-hmm.
AM FM transistor radios with oh my God, I can't tell you how I loved and I hated those earphones, the earphone jack.
Yes.
I mean, if you're of our age, what that earphone jack looked like. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
a plastic little white mushroom.
It wasn't an Apple $149, earphone.
No, it wasn't custom shaped to your ear at
Right.
all. It was just shove it in your ear, and it was so big. It was as big as you could possibly get in your ear just to hold a speaker, because that's where the speaker was. See, now the speaker, well, you could shove it inside your ear,
Can I say
but
suppository?
yeah, that's pretty much. By the way, I found numerous transoceanic Royal 3000s, and quite a number of them.
What's the
And
price range on them?
well, the cheaper ones, but I don't know if they work, are going for $22, and they're ranging all the way up to $300.
Yeah.
No, I see one for $614.
Oh boy, that one must be really good.
Well, it says transistor. Well, no, transistor battery. Yeah, no, I don't know why so expensive. I am, however, going to get, just for nostalgia's
You gonna get a
sake.
$22 one?
I think so. I
Yeah,
think
why
so.
not?
33 sold. They got a lot of them. What the? It must be. I don't know.
Are they reproductions or are they originals?
That's a good question. Because transoceanic. They got a lot of them. I don't know why they got so many of them.
You say transoceanic, transoceanic. I really airlines. Airlines is what I want to say. Transoceanic airlines. Fictional airlines. It reminds me of the island. I can't remember. Yeah, a lot of information about it revealed the TV series Lost. Yes, Lost, not the island, Lost. It was called Lost. Yes, that's what I was saying. Yeah,
What was called Lost?
Lost was the
I mean,
uh,
I know the movie Lost, but
yes. Well, no, there's
I
a
mean
series.
the
There's
show,
a
the series.
the,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
TV series called Lost. That is the name of the airline that crashed at the beginning of the show in the first episode. Trans Well, actually, it's Oceanic Airlines. I'm sorry. It's Oceanic Airlines. They were founded in 1979, so I guess this counts. And
Right.
claims that they have had a perfect 30-year safety record. Okay, anyway. Sorry.
No
You,
worries. I was just purchasing this thing on.
you just kept saying that, and I kept thinking, and I said the island, but I meant Lost. The TV series Lost is what, because there's also a series called The Island, The Island, I think. But the TV series Lost is what I was thinking of, and it is called Oceanic Airlines, not Transoceanic Airlines. So anyway, if anybody has ever watched that show, it is really weird, and I loved it until the end. And I guess we're kind of going off topic, and I'm not going to give any spoilers, but until the end.
That's okay. I'll cut this out. We'll go a minute more. So anyway, so getting back to radios. Let's see. So okay, radio. What other music tech can you think of? And same thing for all you guys out there. What other music tech can you think of happened in the 1970s and the 1980s?
Well, this isn't music, but it's communication device. Does that count?
Well, quite a bit.
Anyway,
Technically, though, that is from the late 60s.
it is. It is from the late '60s.
Or from the 2300s, is it? 2200s?
Exactly. So
So
yeah,
it's one
yeah.
way or the other, yeah.
John Teeter brought that to me from the future. Actually, not. It was somebody here locally that gave it to me. Thank you very much. I don't think you're listening or watching, but maybe you will, and you know who you are. It was or is a techie person.
There you go. MTV. That's a great one, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
MTV
MTV.
was
So,
80s.
MTV is definitely 80s.
Yeah.
Ba, ba, da, ba, da.
I
I'll
always
never forget the MTV commercial on the
right,
moon with the oh
right,
my God, with the flag and the MTV flag. I
exactly.
mean, classic. I'll never forget the first time I saw that, and
And
I
the Dire Straits song "Money for Nothing."
yep, yep. Okay, so why are
I'm not going to
these?
sing it, guys. Sorry. Javi already threatened me with some type of copyright issue, something or other.
Well, I don't like to get hit with copyright issues. Hang on a second. What the heck?
Well, that is the 8 o'clock hour. Actually,
That
the
is
ten
the
o'clock
eight
hour.
o'clock, 10 o'clock hour. We'll go another minute or two, um, to fill in our gaps and stuff for the audio. I'd like to give them at least an hour. Uh, yeah, MTV. Um,
MTV set
I got
standards.
to be honest with you, folks. I mean, I know a lot of you probably might have a lot of good memories of MTV and VH1 from the which was the older MTV.
I know, I know, I know.
What's that?
Does Max Headroom fall into MTV
Why?
time
Yeah, yeah,
period?
yeah, yeah. Yes, it does. Except Max Headroom would fall in under next week's special, which
Okay,
is
all right,
specials.
okay.
So probably we'll be talking about that one next week. And speaking of which, I'll just go ahead and plug next week's show. Next week we'll be talking about specials during the 70's and 80's. Like for instance, the Star Wars special, um, the Max Headroom, and different things like that. Certain shows that have happened, certain we're going to be looking quite a few up. So we're going to be again filling your head with nostalgia. There's a lot of things that I'm telling you. I
Worthless knowledge.
I came up with this trivial list. I came up with this trivial list in a matter of 5 minutes. I filled up an entire year's worth
He did, folks.
of
He did.
of stuff and of topics. And some of them, like computers, I had to split them up into three, like computer tech, computer peripherals tech, and then because we could talk an entire hour about different computers of the 70's and 80's. We could talk an entire hour about all the different peripherals of the 70's and 80's, and we can talk an entire hour about all the pocket computers and all the miniature computers and all those things attached to that, calculators, pocket calculators and stuff of the 70's and 80's. So I tell you guys, when I'm not kidding when I say, well, yeah, that's a little after 70's and 80's, Raspberry Pi. But I'll tell you, when I say there's a lot, the V miniseries, Jeffrey, is a perfect example. Perfect
Yes.
example
Yes.
of something that happened in the 70's and 80's that never would have occurred to me, but if I go look up a list on Google, I guarantee you that one will pop up, and we will be talking about it, because that one and Roots is another one. The Roots miniseries, the V miniseries, those are series that everybody. MASH is a perfect example.
Wow.
MASH occurred only in the 70's and 80's.
Wow.
And although it's that will be talked about on another subject,
That could be a whole
that
show.
last
Actually.
episode, I could definitely
Yeah.
talk about MASH for a whole show. But I gotta tell you, all those shows, the series, those specials that popped up, those miniseries, some were very instrumental for a lot of people. That V I loved. I mean, I still to this day have two patches with that little V, which is those two lines and the little dot in the middle, because I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And one of the Star Trek conventions, they were selling them, and I bought them. But I got to tell you, Roots was another one. My school made me
Right.
watch it,
Right.
but after the first two episodes, I was hooked, and
Hey,
and it was incredibly fascinating and educational as well. And then
Paul
and
mentioned.
then and then one of my favorite actors in Kunta Kinte, and Reading Rainbow Man himself,
Right. Right.
LeVar Burton,
Jordy
is one of my favorite characters on Star Trek.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it all ties together.
I
But
want to give him some credit. Paul Stewart said CDs came out in the 80s. That's right. In 82, CDs were out. Yes.
Yeah, we mentioned. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't
I'm
emphasize that a little more. I did mention
trying to,
CDs. I
trying to
did.
bring it up if we didn't.
Oh yeah, I did mention CDs, and I will be speaking on laser discs, which also came out in the 80s. However, that's more on the Videotech side, which we will be getting to in a couple weeks' time or so. So, like I
Whereas
said,
this
next week,
is audio.
there you go. We'll be talking about next week. With that, we'll leave you guys till next week when we will be chatting about miniseries of the 70s and 80s. Well, we'll be bringing some up in the title. You've heard some here. Don't forget, tune in. Same bat time, same bat channel. Good night, folks.